The dawn broke slowly over Fort Bragg, North Carolina, washing the sprawling base in shades of pale gold. Soldiers jogged along the dusty tracks, their synchronized steps thudding like drums across the waking compound. Somewhere beyond the barracks, a whistle blew, sharp, commanding, familiar. The smell of oil, sand, and adrenaline hung thick in the cool morning air. Among the ranks of hardened men and women stood Lieutenant Emma Reyes, her posture straight, eyes sharp, and uniform immaculate. It was her first official day, leading a field drill, a high-stress tactical simulation involving live coordination, split-second communication, and calculated teamwork. But the others didn't see a leader. They saw a rookie. The whispers began long before she reached the training field. West Point grad, huh? Bet she knows how to quote manuals. Paper leader, never seen dirt under her nails. She's too young, too clean, too perfect. Emma heard it all, not through their words, but in the tone that followed her footsteps. The glances, the smirks, the unspoken judgment, they were louder than any insult. Still, she said nothing. She'd learned silence was its own weapon. As she crossed the gravel lot, the morning sun glinted off the silver bar on her shoulder, the mark of a first lieutenant. She could feel the weight of it pressing against her collarbone, heavier than any metal. Leadership wasn't about rank. It was about presence. And right now, she needed to show she belonged, without saying a word. The training ground stretched ahead, a maze of dirt berms, barricades, and mock urban setups designed to mimic battlefield conditions. A half-dozen Humvees idled nearby, their engines grumbling. Soldiers moved between stations, adjusting helmets, checking rifles, tightening vests. And at the center of it all stood Sergeant Jack Harlow, a broad-shouldered veteran with a voice like gravel and a stare that could melt steel. 20 years in service had made him as tough as the boots he wore. His reputation preceded him, firm, fearless, and famously unforgiving toward unproven officers. As Emma approached, Harlow noticed her immediately. His expression didn't soften. "Lieutenant Reyes," he said, dragging out her title with just enough sarcasm to sting. "You're early." "I was told punctuality matters, Sergeant," she replied calmly. He smirked. "Punctuality's good, but it won't save you when the drill starts." The surrounding soldiers chuckled, subtle, nervous laughter that rode on the edge of mockery. Emma met Harlow's gaze evenly. "Then I guess I'll find out," she said simply. Her composure caught him off guard for half a second, but he masked it quickly, turning toward his clipboard. "All right, listen up, people. Today's exercise is tactical mobility under simulated ambush. We're testing coordination, movement, and chain of command response." He gestured toward Emma with his chin. "Our new lieutenant here will observe for the first round. No need to get in the way yet." Emma felt the word observe like a pebble thrown at her. She was supposed to lead, not watch. But she bit back the protest. Observation was fine. Observation meant studying every weakness, and she was good at that. The teams formed ranks. Dust rose beneath their boots as they took positions. Emma stood slightly behind, helmet tucked under her arm, eyes scanning like radar. Each detail mattered, the spacing between formations, the way soldiers carried their rifles, the uneven rhythm of their movement. Harlow barked orders, sharp but inconsistent. Some commands contradicted others. Soldiers hesitated mid-step, unsure who to follow. Emma's mind worked like clockwork, noting every flaw. Too much noise on the comms. Unclear fallback points. Poor coverage angles. They were strong individually, but disjointed as a team, like a puzzle forced together by hands that didn't understand the picture. And above it all, she could feel Harlow's skepticism radiating toward her. Every mistake, every delay, seemed to silently say, "See? This is what you'll have to deal with. You won't last. But Emma wasn't easily rattled. She'd been through worse, and not on training grounds. Her father had served before her, Captain Luis Reyes, a decorated army strategist who taught her everything about composure under fire. Leadership, he once told her, isn't about commanding people. It's about commanding yourself, especially when no one believes in you. Those words echoed now as she stood amid the haze of dust and tension. The first simulation began, a convoy ambush scenario. Explosions thundered in the distance, followed by shouts. Soldiers scrambled into formation, some ducking, some firing blanks in the wrong direction. Harlow's voice cut through the radio. Alpha team, move north. No south. Hold position. The team hesitated, and the moment of confusion spread like wildfire. Within minutes, the simulation looked like chaos disguised as strategy. Emma kept her silence, watching closely. She wasn't here to embarrass anyone, yet. She was here to learn where the real weaknesses lay. As she observed, one soldier, a young private named Coleman, tripped on uneven ground and lost grip of his mock rifle. His panic rippled through the nearby team. Another recruit ducked instead of covering, exposing the group's flank. Emma clenched her jaw. She wanted to intervene. She could fix this. She knew exactly how to fix this. But she reminded herself of the plan. Patience first. Action second. Still, she could feel the seconds slipping away like sand through her fingers. Harlow's commands grew more frantic, his frustration audible. Move, move. Damn it, hold that line. But they weren't moving. They were reacting, and reaction without leadership was just noise. Emma took one step forward, boots pressing into the dirt. One of the older corporals noticed her movement. "Ma'am, are you joining in?" he whispered half-jokingly. She didn't respond. Her eyes were locked on the platoon. The rhythm of the chaos fascinated her. It was like watching an orchestra where everyone played a different tune. The key to leadership, she knew, wasn't about controlling the noise. It was about turning it into harmony. She started mapping out in her mind how she would change the entire structure, where each team should move, when to signal retreat, when to coordinate cover fire. Her strategy unfolded like a mental blueprint, fast, precise, instinctive. And yet, as she stood quietly taking notes, Harlow's voice rang out behind her. "You're awfully quiet, Lieutenant," he said mockingly. "Taking notes for your next classroom presentation?" A few soldiers chuckled again. Emma turned her head just slightly. Her tone was even, calm, and surprisingly firm. "No, Sergeant," she replied. "Just learning what not to do." The laughter stopped. Harlow blinked, caught between irritation and intrigue. Before he could respond, the final horn blared, the end of the drill. The soldiers dropped their weapons, gasping for air. Sweat glistened on foreheads. Harlow shouted for everyone to regroup. Emma tucked her helmet under her arm and walked forward through the line of soldiers. Her steps were deliberate, steady. Dust clung to her boots. When she reached the front, she stopped beside Harlow. "Permission to speak, Sergeant?" she asked. He raised a brow. "Go ahead, Lieutenant." Emma gestured toward the scattered formation. "You have strong people here, but they're reacting to noise, not direction. If you synchronize movement and communication, they'll act as one, not as 20. Harlow crossed his arms. "You think you can do better?" She didn't flinch. "No," she said. "I know I can help them do better." Her voice wasn't arrogant. It was factual, precise. The kind of voice that didn't need to shout to be heard. For a long moment, the field was silent, except for the hum of distant engines. Then Harlow gave a slow nod. "All right, Lieutenant," he said finally. "Next round's yours." Emma's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. This was the moment she'd been waiting for. As the soldiers reset positions and the dust began to settle again, she took a deep breath. The wind brushed against her face, carrying the faint scent of sweat and steel. The so-called rookie was about to lead her first real drill, and nothing about her calm eyes suggested she would fail. Because she wasn't just ready. She'd been ready her entire life. The sun climbed higher over Fort Bragg, and the training ground simmered under the early warmth. Soldiers adjusted gear, checked rifles, and exchanged quick, sharp words with one another. Emma Reyes stood at the edge of the field, her boots planted firmly on the loose gravel, her eyes scanning the platoon like a hawk. Sergeant Jack Harlow walked past her with that same incredulous smirk. "Well, Lieutenant," he said loudly enough for the team to hear, "hope you're ready to see real soldiers at work." His voice dripped with sarcasm. Around him, a few soldiers laughed, trying to make themselves part of the joke. Emma's lips curved into a faint smile that didn't reach her eyes. She had expected this. The smirks, the jokes, the underestimation, all part of the first-day ritual. She didn't react. Not yet. Harlow continued, his tone rising with exaggerated drama. "We'll go easy on the rookie today. Don't want her to get a heart attack." A few more chuckles rose from the platoon. Private Coleman, still catching his breath from the first round, rolled his eyes at the remark, but stayed silent. Emma adjusted her helmet, feeling its weight like a reminder of the challenge ahead. Leadership wasn't about fitting in or proving anyone wrong immediately. It was about timing, precision, and understanding every weakness in the room, including Harlow's arrogance. Harlow signaled for the team to begin the next drill. All right. Tactical mobility under simulated ambush. Let's see if you can even move without tripping over each other. The soldiers fell into formation, this time under Emma's watchful eyes. Her mind quickly assessed each squad member. Corporal Diaz on the left had strong coordination, but tended to freeze under sudden noise. Private Simmons was impulsive, quick to act, but slow to listen. Coleman, though inexperienced, had quick reflexes but lacked awareness. Every flaw matters in the field, she thought. Every hesitation could cost someone. Harlow barked orders, but his delivery was chaotic. "Alpha, advance forward." "No, hold position." "Bravo, cover left." "No, right." The soldiers froze mid-movement. Their confusion spread like a virus, undermining their rhythm. Emma could feel it in her chest, the rising panic of the group. And then she noticed something else. Their eyes occasionally flicked toward her. Not with respect, but with doubt, wondering if she'd intervene. The first few seconds of the drill were a mess. Movement was clumsy, miscommunications were frequent, and the drill looked doomed to failure. Smoke grenades popped at intervals, creating haze that made lines of sight nearly impossible. The cacophony of simulated gunfire echoed across the training ground, punctuated by shouted commands from Harlow that contradicted one another. Emma remained silent, her mind mapping every movement. She studied Harlow's body language, tense, impatient, unpredictable. Then she studied her platoon. Every mistake, hesitation, and frozen stare was a clue to what needed fixing. She didn't move yet. She didn't need to. The platoon's first blunder came when Coleman froze in the middle of the field, unsure whether to advance or take cover. He stumbled backward, almost colliding with Simmons. Harlow yelled at them, his voice straining. "Move! Move! Can't you follow orders?" Emma's jaw tightened. Every instinct screamed to act. But she reminded herself, patience first, action second. Leadership was as much about timing as command. Then came the first simulated casualty, a recruit wounded in the wrong position. Screams and panic spread through the ranks. Soldiers were acting independently, firing blanks in uncontrolled bursts, exposing each other unnecessarily. Harlow's frustration was palpable, and his hands gestured wildly. Emma noticed the pattern immediately. The chaos wasn't random. It had structure. The lines were off, spacing uneven, communication broken. Soldiers were looking for guidance, but Harlow's instructions were inconsistent. Her pulse quickened. She could see the exact sequence needed to regain control, and she knew exactly what she would say when the time came. The smoke thickened. Emma ducked slightly to avoid the drifting haze, her hands instinctively brushing the straps of her vest. Her mind raced through every tactical maneuver she'd ever studied. Flank, cover, suppress, advance. Each command was precise in her head, a perfect sequence waiting for release. Harlow's mocking tone cut through her thoughts. "You're quiet, Lieutenant. Don't be shy, join in." Emma turned slightly toward him, her voice calm but firm. "I'm observing, Sergeant." The laughter died immediately. It wasn't rudeness or sarcasm that silenced the room. It was the unexpected steadiness in her tone. The soldiers were taken aback by the composure that emanated from someone they had labeled a rookie. Harlow's eyes narrowed. "Observing? You will speak, Lieutenant. This is a drill, not a classroom." Emma inhaled, steady and deliberate. She didn't argue. She didn't need to. Her moment was coming. Minutes stretched. Each second of chaos was a lesson. She memorized every misstep, every pause, every miscommunication. She noted which soldiers responded to pressure and which froze. She assessed the terrain, where the smoke blocked vision, where the cover was insufficient, where the lines would collapse first. And then it happened. Coleman froze again, this time directly in front of a simulated explosion. The team hesitated. Chaos threatened to spread uncontrollably. Emma could wait no longer. She stepped forward decisively, boots crunching against gravel. Her voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Alpha Team, flank left. Bravo, cover fire until my mark. Move now." The sudden clarity in her commands shocked the platoon into action. Harlow blinked, momentarily speechless. Every soldier pivoted, straightened, and followed her direction instinctively. Emma's hands moved fluidly, signaling positions. Her eyes darted from team to team, catching errors before they happened, correcting before mistakes multiplied. In seconds, the disorganized group had transformed into coordinated motion. Movements that were sloppy and hesitant now flowed with rhythm. The chaos melted into precision. Harlow's mouth opened, then closed. He was staring at her, disbelief etched into every line of his face. The soldiers had stopped looking to him. They were following her. Emma didn't pause. She remained calm, her commands measured, her presence commanding respect without needing to shout. Every movement had a purpose, every word a clear direction. The mockery from moments ago had vanished, replaced by focused attention. Even the evaluators observing from a distance leaned forward, pens paused mid-note, captivated by the sudden transformation. By the time the horn signaled the end of the drill, Emma had done more than lead. She had demonstrated control, precision, and confidence under pressure. The platoon, panting and exhausted, looked at her with a new recognition. Harlow stepped forward, jaw clenched, eyes narrowing. "Lieutenant, I..." He trailed off, words failing him. Emma met his gaze evenly, calm but unyielding. "We executed the drill," she said softly. "Not perfectly, but effectively. They'll improve faster if guided clearly." For the first time, Harlow saw something he hadn't expected. Not arrogance, not luck, not fear, leadership. The morning sun now hung high above Fort Bragg, illuminating the dust in the air like gold particles in a river. Emma Reyes stood amid the aftermath of chaos, the so-called rookie who had turned mockery into command. And in the back of her mind, she knew this was only the beginning. The drill had barely begun when the first signs of chaos erupted. Smoke grenades detonated with sharp cracks, filling the field with a dense haze. The simulated battlefield roared with the echo of blanks, the barked commands of soldiers, and the hurried footsteps of men and women scrambling for cover. Emma Reyes, standing slightly apart from the formation, felt her heart race not from fear, but from anticipation. Every sense was heightened. She had observed the patterns, the mistakes, the hesitation in her platoon during the previous drill, and she now understood exactly how the confusion would unfold. Alpha, advance, no hold. Bravo, cover left. Harlow's voice cut through the smoke, strained and frantic. The conflicting instructions collided with the panic rising in the soldiers. Some froze. Others moved incorrectly. The once disciplined lines had devolved into a tangle of limbs, weapons, and uncertainty. Emma's mind catalogued each misstep. Corporal Diaz froze halfway to the next barricade, eyes wide, rifle trembling in his hands. Private Simmons barreled forward recklessly, ignoring cover, leaving an exposed flank. Coleman, still green and anxious, crouched behind a low wall, unsure whether to provide suppressive fire or retreat. Every instinct screamed at her, intervene immediately. But Emma knew she couldn't act too soon. Leadership wasn't about rushing in. It was about taking control at the exact moment it would have maximum effect. She watched. She analyzed. She waited. The chaos escalated further when a simulated explosion went off near the center of the field. The shockwave of confusion sent soldiers scattering in different directions. Someone shouted that a teammate was down, and panic intensified. Blank rounds fired in uncontrolled bursts, clashing with the movements of the team. The cacophony was overwhelming. Harlow barked and gestured wildly, but his tone faltered under pressure. Move, protect each other, fall back. Yet the soldiers couldn't process his inconsistent commands. Emma's eyes narrowed. Her pulse was steady. The time to act had arrived. She stepped forward decisively, her boots crunching on the gravel and dirt, cutting through the haze of smoke. Alpha team, flank left. Bravo. Cover fire. Move now. Her voice was calm but commanding, slicing through the chaos like a scalpel. Head snapped toward her. Soldiers paused mid-motion, confused. But her confidence was palpable, her composure undeniable. Without hesitation, the soldiers responded. Emma's hand gestures were precise, fluid, a silent language of leadership. Each signal corrected mistakes before they escalated. Diaz moved into cover properly. Simmons slowed his reckless advance and provided effective suppressive fire. Coleman followed her hand signals, covering his teammates with newfound focus. Within moments, the chaos began to organize. Movements that had been erratic became deliberate. The platoon adapted seamlessly to her commands, adjusting spacing, angles, and cover positions. The noise of confusion turned into a rhythm of synchronized motion. Even Harlow stood frozen, watching with disbelief. This was not the timid rookie he had mocked minutes earlier. This was someone who understood the battlefield instinctively, who could see beyond panic and orchestrate control with precision. Emma didn't let the team falter again. She anticipated every possible error. Charlie, maintain suppression. Delta, adjust flank to 30 degrees. Cover your sectors. Her tone was sharp but measured, each word calculated to create understanding without fear. The evaluators observing from the sidelines, clipboards in hand, exchanged glances. They had seen many first-day officers, many rookies, but none who could command in the midst of simulated chaos with such effectiveness. The platoon moved like one organism, each soldier responding to her cues as if they had drilled together for months. Mistakes were corrected instantly. The simulated ambush that had threatened to collapse the exercise now became a controlled, Coordinated operation under Emma's guidance. Harlow finally found his voice, muttering under his breath. How? She's controlling them? Emma didn't flinch. She knew the answer. Calm assessment, precise observation, decisive action. Leadership wasn't loud or flashy. It was steady, predictable, and reliable. The tension in the air slowly shifted. Soldiers began to trust her commands instinctively. Confidence replaced hesitation. Fear of failure faded, replaced by the focused energy of a team functioning as one. Emma's presence alone had transformed the group from disorganized chaos into an effective unit. Then came the final simulated threat, an enemy sniper targeting the platoon's position. Emma immediately adjusted. Alpha, advance in pairs. Maintain suppression. Move under cover. Every movement was controlled, each soldier understanding their role without confusion. Even Harlow had to acknowledge it, inwardly at least. His jaw was tight, his pride bruised, but the results were undeniable. Emma's commands had saved the drill from disaster. Minutes later, the horn sounded, the drill was over. The platoon dropped to their knees or crouched in exhaustion. Breaths came in ragged gasps, sweat streaming down faces, but the energy was different now. There was adrenaline, yes, but also respect. Soldiers looked at Emma, not as the green lieutenant they had doubted, but as their leader, decisive, composed, effective. Harlow stepped forward, his expression a mixture of disbelief and grudging respect. Lieutenant. That I? His words faltered. Emma met his gaze evenly. The team followed the moment they had direction. She said calmly, I didn't do this alone. They performed because they trusted clear commands, not confusion. Harlow exhaled sharply and finally nodded, the corners of his mouth twitching as he tried and failed to hide a smile. The platoon regrouped, picking up weapons, brushing dust from uniforms, catching their breath. Emma moved among them, checking gear, offering small nods of reassurance. Her eyes caught Coleman's, and she gave a subtle thumbs up. He smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and pride. Emma knew the drill wasn't perfect. Mistakes had been made. But what mattered now was that trust had been built, confidence restored, and leadership demonstrated. The evaluators scribbled furiously, clearly impressed. One leaned toward another and muttered, She's remarkable. For a rookie. Emma's attention remained on the soldiers, not on accolades. Leadership, she reminded herself, wasn't about recognition. It was about action, decisiveness, and ensuring those you lead could rely on you under pressure. As the smoke lifted and the field quieted, she felt a rare moment of satisfaction. Not because she had commanded effectively, she had expected to do that, but because the team had responded, adapted, and survived a chaos they might have otherwise stumbled through. For the first time that morning, Harlow extended a hand. Emma hesitated briefly, then shook it firmly. The gesture was simple, but it carried a weight far beyond words. Mutual acknowledgement of skill, capability, and respect. The sun now sat high, casting long shadows across the field. Soldiers trudged back to their stations, quieter than before, but moving with purpose. Emma stood at the center, helmet under her arm, scanning the horizon. Her pulse had slowed, but her mind remained sharp, already anticipating the next drill, the next challenge. The so-called rookie had survived chaos, and she had turned it into order. And she knew, in her heart, that this was only the beginning. The battlefield might be simulated today, but the lessons were real. The team had learned a hard truth. Leadership was not about age, rank, or mockery. It was about clarity, precision, and courage under pressure, traits that Emma possessed in abundance. As the final echoes of drills faded across Fort Bragg, Emma's eyes lingered on the distant horizon. This was the proving ground, the first step toward the leadership she had always sought, the first moment in which she transformed from a rookie into someone the soldiers could trust with their lives. The chaos was behind her. The challenge had been met. And yet, deep down, she knew more tests awaited, ones that would demand even greater skill, courage, and resolve. But Emma Reyes was ready. The morning haze lingered over Fort Bragg, now tinged with the dust of booted feet and the faint acrid scent of spent smoke grenades. The chaos of the previous drills had left its mark, and the platoon's exhaustion was visible in every haggard expression. Yet beneath that fatigue, a spark of something new shimmered, a tentative hope, a sense that perhaps this rookie lieutenant was more than she seemed. Lieutenant Emma Reyes adjusted her helmet and stepped into the center of the training ground, the weight of her uniform no longer a burden but a symbol. Every eye now followed her movements, though many still doubted. Harlow, silent for once, observed from the sidelines, arms crossed, tension radiating from his broad frame. "All right, people," Emma began, her voice clear, calm, and firm. "This is the real test. Simulated ambush, but with consequences. Mistakes cost time, and hesitation can cost lives. Listen carefully, move decisively, and follow my lead." Her words cut through the lingering chaos, like sunlight through fog. Soldiers straightened instinctively, the memory of the previous confusion fresh in their minds. The air, once thick with disarray, now vibrated with attention. Harlow's skepticism remained, but even he couldn't ignore the shift. The platoon's focus had subtly turned toward Emma. Their glances, once filled with doubt, now carried an unspoken acknowledgement. This time, the orders would come from her. Emma assessed the team carefully. Corporal Diaz's nerves were steadying. Simmons' impulsive energy could be harnessed, and Coleman's inexperience could be guided with simple, clear directions. She adjusted the formation, signaling Alpha and Bravo teams with sharp hand gestures, each motion precise and deliberate. Alpha, take the left flank, 30 meters ahead. Maintain spacing, cover each other. Bravo, provide suppressive fire from the rear. Delta, stay mobile, watch for crossfire. Eyes sharp, heads up, move. The change was immediate. The soldiers, who had faltered under Harlow's commands, now executed their movements with startling synchronicity. Emma's tone was steady, but authoritative, her gestures fluid, almost choreographed. It was as if she was conducting an orchestra, each soldier a note, each movement part of a symphony. The smoke grenades detonated again, shrouding parts of the field in thick, blinding haze. A simulated explosion went off near Delta Team, sending them scattering. Emma's voice rang out, precise and cutting. "Delta, regroup. Cover fire first, then advance on my mark. Move." Instantly, the team responded. Diaz and Simmons covered each other. Coleman adjusted position to shield his teammates, and the squad moved as a single unit. There was no hesitation, no chaos, only controlled action. Harlow's mouth opened, then closed, his disbelief palpable. How is she doing this?" he muttered under his breath. Emma ignored him. She was not here for his approval. She was here to lead, and her team's survival depended on clarity and precision, not ego or recognition. The evaluators on the sideline scribbled notes furiously, exchanging surprised glances. It was rare to see such composure from a first-day lieutenant. Most rookies were still trying to remember who was on which team, but Emma Reyes had turned an entire platoon into a functioning unit under fire in mere minutes. As the drill progressed, Emma adapted on the fly. When Alpha Team encountered simulated enemy fire, she didn't hesitate. "Alpha, shift right. Covering fire first, then advance. Move." Her commands were short, crisp, and actionable. No one doubted what to do. The platoon's movements became almost instinctual, the rhythm of their operation smooth and efficient. The chaos that had defined the previous rounds had disappeared completely. Even the soldiers who had been skeptical moments ago were following her without question. Eyes that had rolled, smirks that had lingered, whispers that had mocked, all vanished. Emma's calm authority had supplanted doubt with trust. The turning point came when a simulated enemy team emerged from a concealed position on the far edge of the training ground. Normally, such an ambush would have caused panic, even under experienced leadership. But Emma's platoon responded flawlessly. Charlie Delta, cover the approach. Alpha, suppressive fire first, then flank from the left. Maintain communication. Her commands were a seamless blend of clarity and timing. Every soldier knew their role, moved with confidence, and covered each other effectively. The simulated enemy advance was neutralized in record time. The chaos that had threatened the exercise was now entirely under control. Harlow's jaw tightened as he observed. The veterans in the platoon, once dismissive, now mirrored the precision Emma demanded. She wasn't just giving orders. She was orchestrating, anticipating, correcting, a leader who saw the battlefield as a whole rather than a series of individual actions. Emma moved among her soldiers, correcting minor errors with brief gestures, a nod, or a word. Step slightly left. Eyes up. Maintain spacing. Each correction was instant, subtle, and effective. The team responded without hesitation. It was a quiet domination of the field, a silent assertion of authority that required no shouting, no posturing. By the halfway point of the drill, the platoon's efficiency was remarkable. Movements were crisp, responses immediate, and communication flawless. The soldiers were performing not because they feared punishment, but because they trusted the commands and recognized the competence behind them. Harlow finally spoke, his voice low and grudging. "I didn't think it was possible." Emma, fully focused, didn't reply. She was reading the battlefield, anticipating the next challenge, preparing for contingencies before they arose. Her attention was on the team, not the doubting sergeant. Leadership demanded no ego, only clarity and decisiveness. As the drill entered its final phase, a more complex challenge was introduced, a simulated extraction under heavy fire. Emma didn't falter. Alpha, secure the perimeter. Bravo, provide covering fire. Delta, move to extraction point with precision. Advance only on my signal. The soldiers moved in flawless synchronization, the panic that had gripped them earlier completely absent. Emma's calm authority guided their every movement, her voice a tether in the chaos, her gestures a map of clarity. The final simulated obstacle was a collapsing bridge, a timed hazard that required immediate action. The soldiers hesitated, eyes widening. Emma didn't hesitate for a second. Move, single file, maintain spacing. Coleman, lead, Diaz, watch rear, go. The platoon flowed across the hazard like water through a channel, each movement precise, coordinated, and purposeful. Not a single error occurred. By the time the drill concluded, the platoon had transformed completely. Exhausted, breathless, but alive with adrenaline, the soldiers looked at Emma with new understanding. She had taken control of chaos, turned fear into confidence, and demonstrated leadership that transcended rank and experience. Harlow approached, his expression a mixture of awe and reluctant respect. "Lieutenant, I didn't expect." Emma gave a small nod, letting the moment speak for itself. "They performed well because they followed clear commands," she said simply. "Not because I forced it." The platoon's murmurs of agreement rippled across the group. Even the most skeptical soldiers now viewed her as their leader, not merely a rookie. As the sun climbed higher over Fort Bragg, Emma Reyes stood at the center of the training ground, surveying the team she had just transformed. The chaos was gone, replaced with order, discipline, and unity. Every soldier had performed to the best of their abilities, guided by her steady hand. For the first time that morning, Sergeant Harlow extended a hand. Emma shook it firmly, her calm eyes meeting his with quiet confidence. The drill was over. The so-called rookie had taken control. And from that moment, the soldiers knew. Lieutenant Emma Reyes was no ordinary officer. She was a leader forged in observation, precision, and composure under pressure. The battlefield might have been simulated, but the lessons were real. Chaos could be tamed, doubt could be silenced, and leadership could emerge, even from someone they had underestimated. Emma Reyes had taken her first command and turned it into a defining moment. And in the depths of her mind, she knew this was only the beginning. The takeover had been complete. The platoon, once fragmented and doubtful, was now cohesive, coordinated, and ready to follow her into any challenge. And Emma, standing in the rising sun, understood one fundamental truth. Leadership was not given. It was earned, moment by moment, decision by decision. And she had just earned it. The afternoon sun had climbed high, casting harsh shadows across the Fort Bragg training ground. The drill was far from over, yet the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Soldiers who had mocked Emma Reyes hours earlier now moved with precision, following her commands with a rhythm born of trust rather than fear. Even Sergeant Harlow, whose skepticism had been palpable, observed quietly, arms crossed, trying to reconcile his disbelief with the undeniable truth. The rookie lieutenant had turned a chaotic exercise into a disciplined operation. The next phase of the drill was a simulated extraction, under fire, a complex scenario designed to test both strategy and coordination. Smoke grenades hissed and popped, covering parts of the field in a thick haze. Blank rounds echoed in the distance, and the team's nerves, though steadied by Emma's leadership, were still tested. "Alpha, secure the perimeter," Emma called, her voice carrying over the cacophony. "Bravo, provide covering fire. Delta, move to the extraction point. Stay in formation. Eyes up, heads sharp. On my mark, move." Each word was precise, deliberate, and measured. Her team responded immediately, seamlessly adapting to her commands. Where moments before hesitation had reigned, now every soldier acted decisively. Emma moved fluidly among the squads, giving short corrections and gestures that kept the team synchronized. "Diaz, cover the left flank. Simmons, suppressive fire, now. Coleman, keep moving, eyes forward." The platoon's transformation was breathtaking. Movements were coordinated, precise, and instinctive. What had once been scattered, panicked reactions had become a cohesive unit operating as one. Every soldier, from the newest recruit to the seasoned veterans, was focused, alert, and performing at the peak of their abilities. Harlow watched silently, jaw tight, his pride bruised, but his respect undeniable. This was no longer the rookie who had stumbled into the drill earlier that morning. Emma had taken control, and the platoon responded not out of fear, but because they trusted her judgment. A simulated explosion went off near Delta Team, throwing dust and debris into the air. Some soldiers froze. Others instinctively ducked or advanced. Emma's voice cut through the chaos like a sharp blade. "Delta, regroup immediately. Covering fire first, then advance on my mark. Move." The team obeyed without hesitation. Diaz adjusted his position perfectly. Simmons coordinated with him for suppressive fire, and Coleman advanced with measured caution, covering his teammates. The platoon's movements became almost instinctual, each soldier anticipating the needs of the others. Emma's eyes scanned the field, catching every minor error before it could escalate. "Alpha, watch your spacing. Bravo, maintain line of fire. Delta, shift 20 degrees left." Her hand signals were precise, almost choreographed. Each movement of her arms, Each gesture of her hands communicated more than words could. The team followed without question. Harlow muttered under his breath, "I didn't think it was possible." Emma didn't respond. Her focus was unwavering. Leadership, she reminded herself, was about clarity, precision, and timing. Recognition was irrelevant. As the drill entered its final stages, the team faced the most complex scenario yet. A simulated bridge collapsed during extraction. The soldiers hesitated, uncertainty flickering across their faces. Emma acted instantly. Advance single file. Maintain spacing. Diaz, lead. Simmons, cover rear. Coleman, flank left. The platoon moved like water through a channel. Precise, coordinated, and efficient. Not a single error occurred. Even the soldiers who had doubted her earlier were now completely aligned with her commands. The horn sounded, signaling the end of the exercise. The team dropped to the ground, exhausted but alive with adrenaline. They had executed a complex scenario flawlessly, under pressure, and under a leader they had once mocked. The shift in the platoon was unmistakable. Soldiers looked at Emma with newfound respect. Eyes that had once carried skepticism now held trust. The laughter and whispers that had accompanied her arrival were gone. Emma had earned their confidence, not through words, but through action. Harlow approached, still catching his breath. "Lieutenant, that was impressive," he admitted, finally acknowledging her competence. Emma gave a small nod, her expression calm. They performed well because they trusted clear commands. That's all leadership is, clarity and consistency. The team began packing up, adjusting gear, and preparing for the debrief. The energy in the air had changed. Where there had been uncertainty, there was now cohesion. Where there had been doubt, there was now respect. The turnaround was complete. Emma moved among the soldiers, offering small words of encouragement and guidance. "Good work. Keep your spacing tight. Stay alert. This is the kind of focus we'll need in the field." Even Coleman, who had been visibly nervous all morning, looked up at her and smiled. "Thanks, Lieutenant," he said. I actually understood what to do this time." Emma's lips curved into a faint, approving smile. "You all performed well," she said. "But remember, this is just practice. Keep learning. Keep improving. That's how we survive out there." The debrief was conducted in the briefing tent. Evaluators praised the team for their performance, highlighting how the squad had transformed from a disorganized group into a coordinated unit under pressure. The senior officer turned to Emma first. "Lieutenant Reyes, that was one of the most efficient recoveries I've seen from a rookie team. Your leadership under pressure was exemplary." The room fell silent. Soldiers who had once doubted her now watched in awe. Emma didn't boast. Instead, she highlighted her team's strengths, pointing out individuals who had adapted quickly and where improvements could still be made. Her humility disarmed even the most skeptical veterans. Harlow, standing at the back, finally nodded. "Didn't think I'd be taking notes from you," he muttered. Emma chuckled softly. "Leadership isn't about who shouts the loudest, Sergeant. It's about who can keep everyone alive and effective." The soldiers murmured their agreement. The atmosphere had shifted completely. Respect was no longer a distant aspiration. It was tangible, earned through action, composure, and decisiveness. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows across Fort Bragg, Emma stood outside the tent, watching her platoon move with purpose. The turnaround was complete. What had begun as chaos and doubt had become order, trust, and cohesion. The soldiers had learned a hard lesson. Leadership wasn't granted by rank or age. It was demonstrated through action, decision-making, and the ability to guide others under pressure. And Emma Reyes had proven herself in spades. Harlow approached one last time, before the platoon dispersed. "You've changed the way they work," he admitted. "And maybe the way I look at things, too." Emma's eyes softened slightly. "It's not about me, Sergeant. It's about the team. If they perform better, that's the result of leadership, not ego." The soldiers carried themselves differently as they returned to the barracks. Confidence replaced hesitation. Order replaced chaos. And for the first time, Emma felt the quiet satisfaction of having turned mockery into respect, doubt into trust, and chaos into precision. Weeks from now, they would speak of this day, the day their rookie lieutenant had led them flawlessly through a drill that had begun in disorder and fear. Today, she had proven not just her ability to command, but her capacity to inspire, to organize, and to lead in a way that would resonate long after the sun set over Fort Bragg. Emma Reyes watched them go, the weight of responsibility heavy but familiar. She had achieved the turnaround, the moment where respect replaced doubt. But she knew the journey was far from over. Every mission, every drill, every challenge would demand more. Yet she was ready. The platoon had turned a corner. Their trust in her was no longer tentative but solid. And from that trust, a foundation had been built, one that would carry them through every trial yet to come. Emma Reyes, the so-called rookie, had not just survived the day. She had reshaped the very fabric of her platoon. She had turned mockery into respect, hesitation into action, and disarray into precision. And as the sun sank lower, casting golden light over the field, she knew this was only the beginning. The turnaround was complete. The future was waiting. The training field had quieted, leaving only the hum of engines and the occasional shuffle of boots on gravel. The sun had begun its slow descent, casting long, orange streaks across Fort Bragg. The platoon had returned from the drills. Exhaustion evident on every face, yet beneath the fatigue, there was an unmistakable shift, a newfound respect for the lieutenant, who had led them through chaos with unmatched precision. Emma Reyes stood at the entrance to the briefing tent, helmet tucked under her arm, observing the soldiers as they gathered. The transformation was remarkable. Those who had scoffed at her arrival now moved with purpose, following routines she had established. Even Sergeant Harlow lingered nearby, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable but subtly changed. Lieutenant Reyes, called Major Bennett, the senior officer overseeing the training, motioning her inside. "We need a full debrief of today's exercises." Emma nodded and entered the tent, her posture straight, presence commanding attention without needing to assert it. Soldiers and evaluators alike fell silent as she walked past, a quiet acknowledgement of the authority she had earned. The room was set up in typical military fashion. A long table at the front with evaluators seated, chairs arranged in rows for the platoon. Clipboards, maps, and markers were neatly arranged, but all eyes were on Emma. The air was heavy with anticipation. "Lieutenant," Major Bennett began, "the outcome of today's drill was unexpected in the best possible way. We've received preliminary notes on the team's performance under your leadership. I want your assessment." Emma took a deep breath. "Sir, the platoon executed the drills with precision, not because of my direction alone, but because they trusted clear and consistent commands. The initial chaos was exacerbated by inconsistent instructions and lack of coordination. Once clarity was provided, the team adapted quickly, demonstrating capability and resilience." A murmur of agreement swept through the room. Soldiers nodded, recognizing the truth in her words. Even the skeptics had seen it firsthand. Major Bennett leaned forward. "And what about individual performance? Who stood out, and where can we improve?" Emma's eyes swept across the room, landing on each squad in turn. Corporal Diaz has excellent discipline under pressure, but occasionally freezes when unexpected variables occur. Private Simmons is instinctive and bold, but requires guidance to channel energy effectively. Coleman has potential, reacting well under instruction, but needs reinforcement in situational awareness. Overall, the platoon's ability to recover from initial disorganization was remarkable. With consistent leadership, they will perform at peak efficiency in real-world scenarios. Harlow shifted slightly, uncomfortable with the praise directed so plainly at a first-day lieutenant. He had seen the transformation firsthand, but hearing it articulated in such detail was humbling. Major Bennett glanced at him. "Sergeant, your observations?" Harlow cleared his throat. "Ma'am," he said, nodding to Emma, "the lieutenant handled the team better than anyone I've seen in years. I was skeptical at first, but the results speak for themselves." A few soldiers muttered their agreement. The tension that had accompanied Emma's arrival seemed to evaporate entirely. Today's drills had rewritten the hierarchy in subtle but undeniable ways. Leadership was no longer defined by tenure alone. Emma continued, outlining specifics from the drills. She described the sequences where chaos had erupted, pinpointed moments of hesitation, and explained the adjustments that brought the platoon back under control. She spoke with clarity, confidence, and precision, every word demonstrating that her authority was grounded in skill, not ego. As she spoke, the soldiers listened intently. Eyes followed her hand gestures as she illustrated maneuvers on the map, fingers tracing flanks, cover points, and advance routes. They had witnessed her lead in action, but seeing the same strategy articulated calmly and analytically reinforced their trust in her judgment. When she concluded, Major Bennett nodded appreciatively. "Impressive, Lieutenant. You've not only led effectively, but also provided a clear framework for learning and improvement. Your team has responded exceptionally well under pressure." Emma inclined her head respectfully. "Thank you, sir. I believe continuous feedback and consistent guidance are crucial. The platoon is capable, but only if they receive clear direction in all scenarios." Harlow exhaled, tension leaving his shoulders. He muttered again, almost to himself, "Never thought I'd see the day. A rookie commanding like this." The debrief continued with individual assessments and evaluations, but Emma's presence dominated the room without arrogance. Her calm authority, earned in the heat of drills, had shifted the dynamic entirely. Soldiers spoke with respect rather than hesitation. Feedback was constructive rather than dismissive. After the formal debrief concluded, Emma addressed the platoon directly. "Today, you faced chaos and uncertainty. Some of you adapted immediately. Some needed guidance. That's normal. What matters is that you learned, adjusted, and executed effectively. Leadership is not about age or rank. It's about clarity, decision-making, and trust. Remember that. Every drill is an opportunity to improve. Every exercise prepares you for the real challenges ahead." The platoon listened, absorbing each word. Emma's tone was measured, authoritative, yet supportive. Her leadership was no longer theoretical. It was proven. Even Coleman, who had been hesitant all day, stepped forward slightly, a glimmer of confidence on his face. "Ma'am, thank you for guiding us. Today, I actually felt like I knew what to do." Emma offered a subtle smile. "Good. That's how you'll grow, by trusting instructions, observing, and applying what you learn. Keep practicing, and you'll become even stronger." As the platoon filed out of the tent, Harlow stayed behind for a moment. "Lieutenant, I have to admit," he said, tone grudging but sincere, "I underestimated you." "Not anymore. You've earned their respect, and mine." Emma inclined her head, her calm demeanor unchanged. "Thank you, Sergeant. I'm here to lead, not to prove myself. Results speak louder than words." Harlow exhaled and nodded. "Fair enough." Outside, The soldiers were organizing their gear, laughter and conversation returning to the barracks. The atmosphere had changed completely, where skepticism and doubt had dominated earlier. Now there was cohesion, respect, and trust. Emma observed them, noting the subtle adjustments in posture, the careful coordination in movement, and the unmistakable spark of confidence that had replaced hesitation. For the first time that day, she allowed herself a small, quiet satisfaction. The turnaround was not just in tactics or efficiency. It was in morale, trust, and the unspoken bond between leader and team. As she watched her soldiers, Emma reflected on the lessons learned. Leadership was not about demonstrating authority through fear or posturing. It was about observing, analyzing, and acting decisively. It was about understanding the strengths and weaknesses of every individual and shaping them into a cohesive unit. And most importantly, it was about timing, knowing when to intervene, and when to let the team learn from controlled chaos. The sun dipped lower, painting the field in shades of gold and orange. Emma Reyes stood at the center of it all, quiet but commanding, a figure who had transformed mockery into respect, chaos into order, and doubt into trust. Major Bennett approached once more. "Lieutenant, your leadership today has set a new standard. The platoon has responded in ways we rarely see from first-day officers. You've proven yourself in every sense." Emma inclined her head humbly. "Thank you, sir. The team performed well because they trusted guidance and executed with precision. My role is to ensure that trust remains and grows with each drill, each challenge." Harlow, standing slightly behind, gave a curt nod. "You've earned their loyalty. Don't lose it." Emma's gaze swept across the soldiers, now moving back toward the barracks. She knew the journey was just beginning. There would be more drills, more challenges, and higher stakes in the days ahead. But for today, the debrief had cemented something crucial. She had proven herself, not through rank or reputation, but through action, clarity, and decisive leadership. The soldiers' trust in her was no longer tentative. It was solid. Emma Reyes had turned a day of mockery into a defining moment, laying the foundation for every future mission, every future drill, every battle that lay ahead. The debrief was more than just a meeting. It was a statement. The rookie was no longer a rookie. She had emerged as a true leader. And as the sun disappeared behind the horizon, casting the Fort Bragg field in twilight, she stood poised, ready for whatever challenge would come next. Leadership had been tested. Respect had been earned. The turnaround was complete. And Emma Reyes knew, with quiet certainty, that this was only the beginning. The morning air at Fort Bragg carried a crispness that hinted at autumn, though the sun already beat down on the training field. The platoon moved with efficiency, boots kicking up dust, gear clanking in unison, each soldier executing commands with the confidence earned through yesterday's turnaround. Emma Reyes walked among them, helmet under her arm, observing the rhythm of her team with a meticulous eye. Today was different. Today was not just another drill. Major Bennett had called a formal assembly to acknowledge the transformation the platoon had undergone under Emma's leadership. Word had spread quickly. The rookie lieutenant who had turned chaos into precision had earned not only her soldiers' trust but the attention of the base's senior officers. Harlow, normally vocal and brash, walked silently beside Emma, his demeanor subdued. "Never thought I'd see the day," he muttered, shaking his head. "You've got the whole base talking." Emma gave a faint smile. "Leadership isn't about attention, Sergeant. It's about results. Today, the team performs as one. That's what matters." The platoon formed neatly, lines straight, faces forward, every soldier standing at attention. Emma's heart swelled not with pride, but with the recognition of something far deeper. The bond she had forged with these soldiers, the trust that had been built through action, discipline, and consistency. Major Bennett approached the center of the field, clipboard in hand, his expression one of quiet approval. The assembled soldiers waited silently, anticipation electric in the air. Emma stood at the front, her presence calm, commanding, yet approachable. She was no longer the rookie. She was the leader they had come to rely upon. "Platoon," Major Bennett began, voice strong and clear. "What you've witnessed over the past 48 hours is remarkable. Under Lieutenant Reyes' command, a team that was initially disorganized, hesitant, and uncertain has transformed into a cohesive, disciplined, and efficient unit. Today, we formally recognize her leadership." A ripple of murmurs ran through the platoon. Soldiers glanced at Emma, their eyes wide, a mixture of pride and awe. Harlow's jaw tightened, a faint smirk betraying the grudging respect he now felt. Emma stepped forward, her boots crunching on gravel, and gave a slight nod. "Sir," she said, her tone steady, "the platoon's performance reflects their dedication, adaptability, and willingness to follow clear guidance. Recognition of leadership is shared with the team. Their execution is what earned this acknowledgement." Major Bennett smiled faintly. "Well said, Lieutenant. Leadership is measured not by words, but by the team's ability to perform under pressure. And today, your leadership has been exemplary." He gestured to a nearby aide, who stepped forward carrying a framed certificate and a ceremonial badge of recognition. The soldiers held their breath as Major Bennett presented it to Emma. "Lieutenant Reyes," he said, "on behalf of Fort Bragg Command, we formally recognize your outstanding leadership, composure under pressure, and ability to transform a platoon into a cohesive unit in record time." Emma accepted the certificate and badge with both hands, her expression calm, but her eyes reflecting a quiet intensity. She gave a nod of respect to Major Bennett, and then turned to face her platoon. "This recognition," she said, holding up the certificate, "is not mine alone. It belongs to every soldier here who executed orders with discipline, adapted under pressure, and trusted in the process. Leadership is not about one person. It's about everyone working together toward a common goal. Remember that." The platoon erupted into applause, a sound echoing across the training ground. Soldiers clapped each other on the back, some grinning broadly, others still processing the shift from skepticism to undeniable respect. Even Harlow allowed himself a small, approving nod. Emma returned the applause briefly, then motioned for the platoon to form tighter ranks. "Attention!" she called, her voice cutting clearly through the residual chatter. "Today, we celebrate progress, but tomorrow brings new challenges. The recognition is a milestone, not a destination. Stay sharp, stay disciplined, and continue to learn. That is how we maintain excellence." The soldiers straightened, faces serious, absorbing every word. They had seen chaos and mockery yesterday. Today, they had witnessed leadership in its purest form. The shift was complete. After the formal ceremony, Major Bennett approached Emma privately. "Lieutenant, your performance has set a new standard here at Fort Bragg. Your approach to command, calm, precise, and observant, is something that senior officers can learn from. I'm recommending you for advanced leadership training." Emma inclined her head respectfully. "Thank you, sir. My focus remains on ensuring the platoon continues to grow and operate effectively. Recognition is secondary to their performance and safety." Harlow, overhearing the conversation, smirked faintly. "You're going places, Lieutenant. Don't lose that focus. You've earned respect, but the real test is sustaining it." Emma's gaze swept the platoon, now practicing maneuvers under the watchful eyes of subordinate instructors. "Respect is earned moment by moment, Sergeant," she replied. "It's maintained through consistency, fairness, and clear guidance." Throughout the afternoon, Emma oversaw training exercises with the same meticulous attention to detail that had defined her rise over the past days. Every movement, every command, and every correction was deliberate. She remained calm under pressure, focused on teaching her soldiers to operate as a unit, while highlighting individual strengths and correcting weaknesses. The impact of her leadership was palpable. Soldiers moved with confidence, communicated clearly, and executed maneuvers with precision. Mistakes were minimal, corrected immediately, and the cohesion of the platoon was remarkable. As the day wore on, Emma walked among her team, checking gear, offering guidance, and observing performance. Coleman, Simmons, Diaz, and others had grown visibly more confident. They no longer relied solely on orders. They anticipated, adapted, and executed with understanding. Even Harlow could not hide the respect that had replaced his initial doubt. He watched Emma with a mixture of awe and grudging admiration. She had turned a platoon of skeptics into believers, a group of hesitant recruits into a disciplined, cohesive unit capable of facing any challenge the field could present. The recognition ceremony had not been about accolades alone. It had been a turning point. Emma had proven that leadership was measured in action, clarity, and the ability to inspire trust under pressure. Her authority was no longer questioned. It was acknowledged, respected, and firmly established. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the field, Emma gathered her platoon one final time. "Today, we received recognition," she said, voice steady and commanding. "Tomorrow, we continue to earn it. Discipline, focus, and trust are not optional, they are essential. Carry what you've learned today into every drill, every mission, and every challenge ahead. That is how we succeed. That is how we survive." The soldiers responded with a unified, resounding affirmation. Their voices echoed across Fort Bragg, a testament to the transformation that had taken place, to the respect that had been earned, and to the leadership that had guided them through uncertainty to competence. Emma Reyes stood quietly, observing her platoon. She had turned mockery into respect, hesitation into confidence, and chaos into precision. The recognition was formal, but the real acknowledgement was written in the eyes and actions of her soldiers. She knew challenges still lay ahead. The recognition was significant, but leadership was an ongoing process. Each drill, each mission, each decision would continue to test her resolve and skill. But for today, she allowed herself a quiet satisfaction. Emma Reyes, once a rookie underestimated by peers and superiors alike, had earned her place not through words, but through decisive action, calm authority, and unwavering focus under pressure. Fort Bragg had taken notice, and her platoon's loyalty and trust were now unwavering. The recognition was more than a certificate or a badge. It was proof that leadership could transform not only a team, but the perception of a leader herself. And as the twilight settled over the training field, Emma knew she was ready for whatever came next. The rookie was gone. In her place stood a leader forged in observation, action, and unwavering composure, the kind of leader capable of shaping the course of any mission and guiding her team through chaos, doubt, and challenge with unwavering confidence. The dawn broke over Fort Bragg with a crisp clarity that seemed to mirror the atmosphere within the barracks. Soldiers moved with purpose, their steps precise, their formations sharp, a reflection of the lessons learned under Lieutenant Emma Reyes, what had once been a team riddled with hesitation, mockery, and disorder was now a cohesive, disciplined unit, a testament to the quiet authority and unwavering leadership of the rookie lieutenant, who had transformed them. Emma stood at the edge of the training field, helmet in hand, observing her platoon as they ran through drills. Her eyes scanned every movement, every shift in position, noting where improvements had been made and where minor adjustments were still needed. The discipline was palpable, the coordination almost instinctual. The transformation she had initiated days ago was now fully realized, and it was her legacy. She remembered the first moments when the platoon had doubted her, when Sergeant Harlow's words had dripped with skepticism, and when the team's hesitation had threatened to collapse the drill entirely. Those memories were distant now, reminders of the obstacles she had overcome, and the stakes she had met with calm precision. The platoon had grown beyond individual talent. They were now a single fluid organism. Corporal Diaz moved confidently, anticipating threats before they arose. Private Simmons channeled his energy with calculated focus. Coleman, once hesitant, now acted with foresight and decisiveness. The soldiers were no longer merely following orders. They were thinking, reacting, and performing as one cohesive force. Emma's leadership had not only transformed the team's performance, but also their mindset. Respect replaced doubt, trust supplanted hesitation, and cohesion overtook disarray. Every drill, every correction, every observation had contributed to this legacy. Her presence was no longer questioned. It was relied upon, silently, instinctively. As she walked among her soldiers, Emma offered brief nods of approval and subtle guidance. Good spacing, Diaz. Simmons, keep your cover lines clear. Coleman, excellent adjustment on the flank. Her praise was measured but meaningful, reinforcing confidence without fostering complacency. Even Sergeant Harlow, who had been one of the most vocal doubters, now observed with quiet respect. He approached Emma quietly, nodding toward the platoon. They've improved more in a few days under your command than in months before. It's impressive. Emma gave a small, respectful smile. It's not about me, Sergeant. It's about the team understanding expectations and executing them under pressure. That's how lasting improvement is achieved. The morning drills concluded, and the platoon gathered in formation for the final assessment. Major Bennett and several senior officers arrived to witness the results of Emma's leadership. The anticipation was high, but the soldiers moved with confidence rather than anxiety. This was no longer a test of leadership, it was a demonstration of legacy. Lieutenant Reyes, Major Bennett began, his voice carrying across the field. We are here to witness the culmination of your command and its impact on your platoon. Your leadership has transformed them, and today we see the full extent of that transformation. Emma nodded calmly. Thank you, sir. The platoon has internalized lessons from previous exercises. They are ready to execute with precision, anticipate challenges, and respond cohesively under pressure. The exercise began. Simulated threats emerged across the training field. Smoke grenades hissed, blank rounds echoed, and obstacles were introduced to test adaptability. The platoon moved as a single unit, each member reacting to signals and threats with an almost instinctual precision. The fluidity of their actions spoke volumes about the training, guidance, and trust instilled by their lieutenant. Alpha Team advanced to cover a simulated perimeter, flanks perfectly coordinated. Bravo provided suppressive fire, maintaining exact spacing and timing. Delta maneuvered to strategic positions, their movements smooth and confident. No hesitation, no confusion, only the seamless execution of complex tactics that had once been unimaginable. Observers watched in awe. Evaluators whispered, noting the dramatic contrast between this cohesive unit and the disorganized team Emma had inherited days before. Major Bennett's gaze lingered on her, admiration evident in the calm, precise way she guided her soldiers through every challenge. Emma's voice, measured and steady, cut through the simulated battlefield. Alpha, maintain spacing. Bravo, cover their advance. Delta, shift 30 degrees left, suppressing enemy fire. Move now. Every soldier responded instantly, without hesitation. Every command was executed with clarity and precision, a testament to Emma's leadership and the training she had instilled. Mistakes were minimal and corrected instantly, not through panic, but through awareness and foresight. As the exercise concluded flawlessly, Emma's platoon gathered for inspection. Major Bennett stepped forward, his face reflecting both pride and respect. "Lieutenant Reyes," he said, voice carrying across the formation, "your leadership has not only transformed this platoon's operational effectiveness, but has set a standard for all officers at Fort Bragg. Your legacy here will endure in every drill, every exercise, and every mission these soldiers undertake." The platoon erupted in subtle applause, smiles on faces that had once been skeptical. Even Harlow, standing slightly apart, allowed a small, approving nod. The rookie lieutenant had not only earned recognition, but had permanently reshaped the culture, morale, and performance of her team. Emma addressed her platoon, her voice steady and commanding. "Today, we've demonstrated what disciplined, coordinated action looks like under pressure. Remember this. Trust in your training, trust in each other, and trust in the leadership you uphold for one another. That is the true mark of our legacy." The soldiers absorbed her words, understanding that their performance was not just a reflection of drills or recognition, but of the enduring principles she had instilled: clarity, discipline, trust, and cohesion. As the sun sank lower, casting long golden shadows across Fort Bragg, Emma allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The journey from being underestimated as a rookie to being recognized as a capable, inspiring leader had been swift but intense. Every decision, every observation, every command had been a step toward building a legacy that would outlast her first assignment. Her platoon moved with confidence as they returned to the barracks, their camaraderie and cohesion evident in the way they carried themselves. The once doubtful soldiers now looked to Emma, not just as a commander, but as the guiding force behind their transformation. Even Harlow walked beside her in silence, a subtle acknowledgement of her skill, influence, and authority. "You've set the bar high," he said quietly, "for them and for everyone else." Emma's gaze swept across her team, their faces reflecting determination, focus, and pride. "Then we maintain it," she replied softly. "Every day in every drill, and every challenge ahead. The recognition, the debriefs, and the flawless execution of drills were milestones. But Emma knew the true measure of her legacy would be the continued performance, trust, and cohesion of her platoon. Every mission they undertook, every exercise they completed, would carry the imprint of the leadership she had demonstrated. The sun finally disappeared behind the horizon, and the training field was bathed in twilight. Emma Reyes stood at the center, quiet yet commanding, the embodiment of leadership forged in observation, action, and unwavering composure. She had transformed mockery into respect, hesitation into confidence, and chaos into precision. The legacy she had built would endure far beyond today, in the discipline of her soldiers, in the cohesion of the platoon, and in the standard of leadership at Fort Bragg. Emma Reyes, once underestimated as a rookie, had proven that leadership was not about rank, recognition, or age. It was about clarity, composure, decisiveness, and the ability to inspire trust. And as the stars began to emerge over Fort Bragg, she knew that this was only the beginning of a remarkable journey, one where her legacy would continue to grow, shaping every soldier she led and every mission she commanded. The rookie was gone. In her place stood a leader, fully realized, whose actions, guidance, and unwavering focus would leave an indelible mark on Fort Bragg. The platoon had learned to trust, to follow, and to perform at their peak. And the legacy of Emma Reyes would echo in every drill, every challenge, and every success yet to come. Fort Bragg would remember the day the rookie transformed not just a platoon, but the very essence of leadership itself.